We're holding Siman Tes Zayin and Maimer al haGuela v'al Tmura, and the shaila here is on the Gemara in Avodah Zarah. Gemara in Avodah Zarah said that there were two questions. Number one, if Avodah Zarah is false, then how come people go and get healed? So Rabbi Kiva answered that they just happened to get healed at that moment. And then the second question was that the Avodah Zarah tells the people in the dream to sacrifice a person, and then it brings rain. So on that, the Gemara answers that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does a nes for Avodah Zarah in order to trick people, because they wanted to be metame themselves, so he gives them a makam to think that they're that they're right, so that they should go to Gehenna. In other words, once a person's bala tameh, poischim lai. Let him be metame. So the question was, if that's the real answer, that's the final answer that answers up all the miraculous stories about Avodah Zarah, then why didn't the Gemara use that to begin with? Why did Rabbi Kiva say a weaker teretz first, that it just happened to happen? Okay? So, Amnam Nispar Ho Inyan Al Pi Masha Amarti Kvar B'Yishuv Divrei Haradak V'Rabbeinu Sadia going. That I'm going to explain this based on something else that I said once to explain the Radak. The Parshas Bereishis al Pasuk V'Anachash Haya Arum Shehiksha Haradak Zal Eich Haya Amiris Hanachash Leisha. The Nachash said to Chava, can you eat from all the trees? And Chava said everything except the Eitz Hadas. And then he said, the Eitz Hadas. He said Hashem knows that you're gonna eat it and become smart, so he told you not to eat it. The Nachash had a whole conversation with Chava. So he says, V'chiyesh boi koich hadibur. How could the snake speak to Chava? Snakes can't talk. V'im haya derech moithis, k'moy amiris ha'astar in Bilam, you're going to say maybe it was miraculous that the snake suddenly had the ability to talk, just like Bilam's donkey had the ability. Then
what's Asar?
Is a female donkey.
Right.
So Lama loy Omar Akasuv Vayiftach Hashem es pi anachash. Kamash Akasuv Vayiftach Hashem es pi asin. Just like over there it says Hashem opened the donkey's mouth, so it should say here Hashem opened the snake's mouth. Ve'hevi Radak Divrei Rasag Zal. He brings down Reb Sadia going Shaloi Diber Anachash El Malach Diber Avurai. The snake didn't actually speak; it was a malach that was speaking on his behalf. Meaning the snake wasn't really doing anything, it was just a malach that temporarily took over the snake's body and spoke to Chava. The Samach Mem was riding on the snake and speaking from his mouth. Ayin Sham. The Radak says that's not good, because the Imkain Machata Hanachash Bazeh. What was it the Nachash's fault? Im huloi diber klum, he didn't speak anything. V'raka malach diber avurai. V'lama nenash nachash, why was the snake punished? You see, after the whole story, that Hashem made the snake slither on the ground and eat dirt. So why did Hashem do that to the Nachash? Nachash didn't do anything wrong. V'hevioi divrei hayesh oimrim. So the Radak brings another teretz. Ki hanachash loi diber el b'tziftzuf. Hanachash loi diber, the snake didn't speak. Elabit siftzuf ramaz lehoisha. He just hissed, so that the isha understood how the snake was hissing, and she understood his language, and that's how he spoke to her. V'hi kira b'ramizis hanachash v'yada masher oitzalemar. She understood what he said. V'tiretz zeh kasav gam ho'archaim hakadosh. The Archaim also says this teretz that's why she heard the snake. We find people who understood the speech of animals. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, shahaya makir b'tziftzuf v'sichas oifes v'chayas, that he understood the language of the birds and the animals. So he understood the birds and mikol shekain adam rishon shahaya yitzir kapov shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So if Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai could do it, then Kol Shekain that Adam and Chava could do it, so therefore we understand Chava understood how.
Which daf and sukkah is it?
Smoke to it. I think it's Chav Ches. It says Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai didn't leave anything that he didn't learn, and one of the things he learned was the Sichas Oifus, I think. Anyway, it's more famous in the Medrash. It says that Shlomo Melech understood the birds and the animals. Even the Gemara even says Rav Elish, right? There's a story of the Rav Elish Namoyer who understood how the bird spoke. Ulam gam hezber zeh loy nir be'enei radak. He says this answer is not the Radak's also not happy with. The eich hevina hoisha kol shakal v'tari b'remiza v'tziftzif. Good, maybe a little bit you could understand the birds, but how are you going to understand the whole hissing of the snake to mean the whole shakal v'tari that the Torah says? V'oid di'im hoisha hevina tziftzif hanachash aval eich hevin hanachash divrei hoisha. That still doesn't explain how the snake understood Chava, because Chava is speaking in human language, and we don't find that snakes know human language. So therefore the Radak concludes, the Dibur Anachash Haya al derech moifis, v'neis. Really, it was a neis that the Nachash spoke. And the reason why he was given the ability to speak is l'naso ispoy isha, to test the Isha. The kasha that he asked, that why didn't the Torah say Hashem opened the mouth of the Nachash? He says the answer is there's a secret in this. It's important to those who understand knowledge. So in other words, he leaves the question without an answer, and he assumes that his readers who have knowledge of maybe Kabbalah will understand it. But we're going to see in the Rebbe it's not Kabbalah. V'adayin yesh lishol lama niskalo hanachash achar shehakel yisbarach sam hadibur b'fiv derech neis. I don't know if this is the Radak saying or the Rebbe saying. He's saying the question is, why did the Nachash get punished if Hashem made him speak? B'derech neis, it wasn't his fault. V'yesh lefarish ki hanachash chashav be'amimus l'kanei ba'adam. That the Nachash was jealous of man's high status in the world. He didn't say it out loud, but he felt that. So Hashem Yisbarach Yada Daitoi Sama Dibur B'fiv. Since Hashem knew what was in his mind, he placed the ability to speak in his mouth. Kinyan Sha'amru Habali Tame Poischin Loi. Oh, Ad Kan L'Shoin Radak. This is the Radak. So the Radak does say, even though it wasn't the snake's fault completely because he didn't intend to speak, Hashem made him speak, but since he had that in his mind, so Hashem continued in that way and made him able to speak. Ulam adayin kasha al shitas Radak. The dibur anachash hayal derech moifis. The Meister, the Radak asks a question and doesn't answer it. He says that the Nachash spoke miraculously. Im kein madu aloi ksiv vayiftach Hashem es pia Nachash. Kamash kosav vayiftach Hashem es pia asayin. Ule'ez soid niskavin Radak. What's the secret here that the Radak refers to? Zal. B'yamroi sheyesh bozen nister gadol v'alkein heli moa kasuv. So what's the secret? So in the Hemshech, the Rabbi is going to say the secret is that moifsim for the Sitra Achra, moifsim that cause people to be nichshal naveris, moifsim that tzad hara, we try to cover it up. That's the theme in these next few simanim. So that's why he's trying to explain by Avodah Zarah. Rabbi Kiva didn't answer right away the teretz that the Avodah Zarah has koyach to show moifsim, because we prefer not to say that. It's better not to give a makom for people to make a mistake and think that the Avodah Zarah has power. So the same way, we don't want to speak about a moifis that the snake did or that Hashem did for the snake to trip up people, because it's going to cause people to be nichshal, to actually think that the Samach Mem had power. Anyway, Amnam, Nir Eliyashiv, Divrei Radak. We're going to answer up the Radak, the Meikar Loi Kasha Midi. Al Pi Agamar, Divrei Agamar Megillah, Chaf He Amid Aleph. Maiste Egel Arishon Nikra Metargim. V'Hasheni Nikra V'loi Metargim. So it says that when you're laning in shul, there was, in the old days, they used to say the Targum after every pasuk. So it says, though, when you lane the Egel, Parshas Kisisa,
the Yemenite Jews still do that.
They still do it, yeah. So Maisa, the Egel Arishon, when you lane the story of the Egel, the Metargim says the Targum after every pasuk.
Does that mean the Targum is also written on a cloth?
No. I think they said it Baal Peh. In the time of the Gemara, they said it Baal Peh. And the Yemenites today, they read it from a Chumash. They have a Chumash and they read the Targum.
But back in the Yemen, they didn't have printing. I think everything was handwritten.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, could be. Anyway, they the second Ma'aseh Egel, they don't translate. Pirush Rashi, what is the first and what's the second? Pirush Rashi, Kol Parshas Egel Ad Vayisraf Boesh, the whole story of how the Egel was made and then Moshe Rabbeinu came down and burnt it. That's all the first Ma'aseh. Zeh Ma'aseh Egel Rishon. Umashe Chazer Aaron, the Sipur HaMa'aseh Zeh. The Sipur HaMa'aseh, he told over the story. Aaron told it to Moshe. Zeh Ma'aseh Egel Hasheni. The reason why we don't translate the second story is because Aaron said, I said to bring Zav, basically, and they brought the Zav, and Aaron threw it into the fire. Okay? Therefore we learn it and we don't translate it. Because we're afraid that the Amah people will make a mistake. They'll say that the Egel had power. And it came out on its own from the fire, miraculously. So they'll say it must have been a real Avodah Zarah. Aval Mikra, B'li Targum. So why are we laying it then? Because the original Torah, without any translation, Ein Mevini Moisei Amoritz. They don't understand it. Ad Kan Divrei Rashi. Ula Halon Sham Tanya Reb Shimon ben Elazar Oimer Lo'olam Yehei Adam Zari B'Tshuva Isav. A person should always be careful with his answers. Shemitoich Tshuva Sheheshivu Aaron LeMoshe Pakru Arim. Because of the answer that Aaron gave Moshe, the Apikorsim, the Yidden who wanted to do Avodah Zarah became they found support for themselves. Shenemar v'ashlichehu bo'esh v'yetzei ha'egel hazeh. So he means, like, be careful with your answers. Aaron was trying to answer himself up to Moshe. Moshe said, like, what did you do? How could you make an egel? So Aaron said, I didn't make the egel. It came out by itself. Basically, he's trying to take the blame off himself, but in the process of doing so, he said something that would leave room for heretics to say that the egel was true. Upirish Rashi heizu pneihem loy mar yesh mamash b'avodah zarah, that the heretics now could say with more boldness that there is truth in avodah zarah. V'hinei be'emes ho'egel loy nasa b'derech hateva. He says, really, Aaron was right when Aaron said it came out. He wasn't just making up an excuse. It says, Shenichnas ha-satan b'soichai v'yatza kamin demus egel, that the Satan caused miraculously that the fire should turn this lump of gold into a golden calf. V'yoid isa tamon, it says also in the Targum, v'yares ho-egel m'cholos, that Moshe Rabbeinu came and saw the egel and the dancing. V'zel l'shaynai, v'sitna hava begava, the Satan was inside the egel, metapes u'meshaver kadam ama, he was dancing in front of the people. Shedalag ho-egel, the egel itself was dancing. V'rakad kadam ama, al yidei shenichnas ha-satan b'soichai, because the Satan was in the egel and making it do that. So you see that the egel acted in a way that was against nature. It was a nace. He threw gold into the fire and the egel came out by itself. It danced in front of the Jews. And this is all another example of what we're talking about in these few simanim of the Sefer. That the Satan has an ability, in order to test Klal Yisrael, he's able to send, to make miraculous things happen. Al derech haba litame poischin loy. Lefisha amru ho'erev rav, asay lo anu Elohim, because they were ba litame, they said, let's make an avodah zarah. The kavanasam, the Erev Rav meant ha'isal avodah zarah, k'mavur b'drash shasam zal. Just the rest of the Jewish people, they weren't mechavin for avodah zarah, but the original of Erev Rav was. Al kain nitan koyach la'samach mem lasos nisim lahagdil anisayan shalak sherim. Therefore, the Samach Mem got the ability to make miraculous things happen in order to test the ksherim, the frum Jews. You see where he's going with this, right? This is similar to today, right? Because the Zionists wanted the Medina, so the Satan got the ability to make moifsim in order to test the frum Jews. Now, of course, the Rebbe said there were no moifsim, but he's saying theoretically, if there were, this is what we would say. Really, with the war, the 67 war, the Rebbe's mahalach was to say more like Rabbi Kiva in the first teretz, that it was just, it just happened to happen. Doesn't mean that it was an ace. But if it would be an ace, then this is what we would say. Lahagdil hanisayin shal ksherim ulahoisif tumah l'rishaim, and to increase the tumah to the rishaim because they chose the path of tumah. Latordam min ha'olam, to cause them to lose their olam haba. K'maymer Chazal. Ela yan sheyesh makom l'amei ha'aretz litois. So that's really why the egel was able to come out of the fire by itself and dance by itself. It was because of the Samach Mem. Really? That's really the reason. But, so why don't we lane it then? We do lane it. But we don't say the Targum, the translation. He says, Yan sheyesh makom la'amei ha'aretz litois v'loimer sheyesh koach b'avodah zara. They'll take the message the wrong way and they'll say that the avodah zara itself had power. L'chein nikra v'loi metargem. The minim aren't going to accept that answer that we say, that the Samach Mem had the power. They're not going to say that. They're going to say it was real. They say this pasuk gave the minim an ability to support themselves that they're right. But a person must be careful with his answers. So, because because what Aaron said, Pakru Ma'arim, the minim found a support for themselves.